Hello, everybody. Thank you to anyone that's tuning in, either live or whenever you get around to watching this. But today we're going to take a look at a YouTuber that I like. She can tend to be a little political, a little bit conservative, but I think it's important to have your ear to the ground on those types of things, especially when it comes to these old school movies that we really like. Lilo and Stitch is a movie that very much represents fundamental conservative values like family, the nuclear family, and the importance of that family. But for the time, it was also somewhat liberal because it was trying to make a comment about your found family and how it's important to have that support system. So let's take a look. I don't know if any of you know anything about this Lilo and Stitch remake, but I was very excited about it and gotten more and more nervous as it went on. Like, for example, the trailers, all of a sudden you started seeing very little minor things, like whenever they were doing the surfing scene and Stitch grabs onto Lilo instead of Nani's leg. And that seems like such a small detail. But I think what's important to keep in mind is that was like one of the only scenes you get in the movie that actually shows that Stitch and Nani are somewhat starting to bond. And apparently that's just gone. And that made me very concerned because it shows like a fundamental misunderstanding of the core value of the movie and what it's trying to say in scenes like that. I've heard Nani's not even the one that brings her to go get Stitch and adopt a dog. We're going to get into it and a lot of the different things that they did with this movie and the changes that they made. They didn't even give the evil scientist a accent. He's supposed to have like a generic Russian accent, which kind of makes him a little bit goofy, a little bit lovable as an alien. Apparently, now he's just a regular guy. It's played by Zach Galifianakis. It seems really odd some of the choices that were made here. So why don't we just get right into it?
We are living yet another day in Disney remake hell. We've been living here with Little Mermaid and Peter Pan and Wendy and Snow White. And now we are joined by Lilo and Stitch. Yes, Disney remade Lilo and
God, do you guys remember when they made like Sleeping Beauty and like Maleficent and Cinderella? Like there was a time where I'm sorry, Beauty and the Beast, not Sleeping Beauty. There was a time where they actually were making these and they weren't terrible. They were actually okay and a lot of people liked them. And I don't know what happened, but I mean, like she said, I mean, from The Little Mermaid wasn't terrible, but it definitely went down a little bit. I think from the color grading. My things against Little Mermaid actually have really not a lot to do at all with the plot. I thought the actress was fantastic. I just think the colors were so mute and monotone. And watch like The Little Mermaid, it is one of the most vibrant movies you will see. It just pops with color, and I just didn't do that. And then the Peter Pan, they changed like so much of the core of the story, and then now here we go with Lilo and Stitch, and they're gonna remove the Ohana. Like, can you believe that they're gonna remove Ohana from this?
Stitch, and they took the original plot and IP and just ripped it up in the writer's room, threw it in the air, and I guess had a little confetti party because what did I watch? Let's talk about it. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe because today we're going to be talking about Lilo and Stitch. And spoiler alert, if you have not seen the new Disney remake and you plan to, and I know what you're thinking, Amala, if I saw the 2002 version of Lilo and Stitch, I don't need a spoiler alert. It's going to be the same, right? No, not right. In fact,
Again, how do you mess this up? This is like should be a 1-for-1 remake. It's like 120 minutes. It's not even that long. Like just 1-for-1, shot for shot it, and you would make $1 billion. You'd make so much money. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy.
Disney took what was a beautiful film about family values and tradition and culture and sticking together and just completely threw that out the window and decided to make a modern day feminist girl boss tale. And I'm going to explain exactly how that happened. Now, for me to explain that, you need to know what Lilo and Stitch is originally all about. It's not even necessarily about Lilo and Stitch.
That's
it's
true.
about Lilo
About family.
and Nani. Now, Lilo and Nani are a sister pair. Nani's the older sister, Lilo's the younger. Now, unfortunately, Lilo and Nani have lost their parents in a car crash, and Nani is thrust into this world of essentially motherhood, taking care of her little sister, Lilo. Now, Lilo has her own struggles in life, Nani has hers, and in the forefront of this film is a fight for custody and guardianship of Lilo. That is what Nani wants. That's what she's advocating for. But the powers that be and the institutions that be are saying, you know what? We are going to take Lilo away from you if in 3 days' time you don't prove that you can create a good, wholesome environment for her. Now, Nani decides she's going to get Lilo a pet.
Tough.
That pet ends up
real.
being the alien Stitch, who has come down to Earth and is going to create his own little bits of conflict. And we have to keep this together before the institutions that be come and take Lilo away from Nani. Now, throughout this whole process, Stitch is creating all these problems, but Stitch is also learning what family means and how to be a family member.
Yeah, there was a huge plot story in the original. It's very layered in there. They don't spend a lot of time on it, but the ugly duckling. There's this whole thing in the original movie where Stitch finds the ugly duckling book and Lilo kind of reads it to him, and he self-identifies with the ugly duckling, and that he wants to find his family and his place in the world.
And what it means when you are chosen by a family. And Nani is battling through all this conflict and everything that Stitch is creating to keep Lilo and keep this family together, whilst Lilo is learning how to teach Stitch to be normal and to behave, and through that process, learning herself. And in the end of this film,
Exactly, right? Like, because in the beginning, Lilo is kind of crazy, and she fights the other girls at the hula school. Like, she herself has issues behaving, and through teaching Stitch to behave, she somewhat kind of you see this all the time in life. If you give children a responsibility, and it's not always, but there's a good chance that they're going to take that responsibility on and really prosper, really flourish and bloom because of it.
through a great struggle for custody and family and learning how to be with one another, we get a family that sticks together. Why? Because Ohana means family, and family means no one is left behind and no one is forgotten. That's what we are told in the original Lilo and Stitch. Now, fast forward to 2025, and we're getting a little bit of a different story. Of course, there's Lilo and Nani and Stitch, and there is this question of guardianship and custody. But Nani is essentially saying, you know what? Do I want to be the guardian of Lilo? Or should I allow the state to come in and relinquish me of this responsibility? And in the end,
I love the way the original movie puts it, right? You see, the original movie, she, from the get-go, that's not even an option in her head. She can't even begin to accept the idea that Lilo's going to get taken away from her. That is absolutely unacceptable to her. And through the disasters of the movie, when we get to the traditional second act low point, and we have that moment, that beautiful moment where you get that Hawaii vibes. They got the tiki torches. They're up in the hammock at the top of the hill with the palm trees, and they both have the flower in their hair. It's a gorgeous scene. And it's like the first time you kind of feel Nani starting to accept that maybe she is in over her head. Now, we as viewers know that she's actually doing a really good job, and Stitch and the aliens that are after him are really what's causing these problems. But Nani doesn't know that. And so it's the way it's painted in the original movie, thinking that you should let the state take Lilo is viewed as the wrong thing to think about. Like, ugh. Lilo doesn't beat up the little girl, and there's no hot lifeguard 0 out of 10 movie, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, like, come on. Are you kidding me? I think that's important, though. It's an important point to say, like, that it makes you feel like Lilo is so human. She's so real and relatable. And they're just going to remove that. Lilo doesn't actually have as much of an arc because they removed a lot of her quirkiness and what made her a very vibrant and a dynamic character. Excuse me.
spoiler alert, Nani does decide.
Discover Cloudinary Image, powered by artificial intelligence. Cloudinary.
to give Lilo up to the state and say, you know what, I am not going to be her guardian. In fact, I'm going to go off to college and become a marine biologist. Yes, through her struggle in taking care of Lilo,
Like what?
Nani is repeatedly visited by the state. She's repeatedly having conversations with them. And essentially, she decides that the state will take care of Lilo. And that's the route that she's going to take, because the storylines of Lilo and Stitch don't really change throughout this 2025 film. And this, of course, is interesting because obviously we know that's not the way the story is supposed to go. I don't think anybody would have wanted to watch this film knowing that the ending was going to be that Nani was going to give up Lilo to the state. But nonetheless, that's the route that Disney decided to take. But
It's literally laughable to like even just like imagine that that's what they set out to do. They're like, hey, you know the original Lilo and Stitch that everybody loves? You know how like the Ohana means family and family means nobody gets left behind? What if we remade it, but we just removed that? What if we took the heart and soul of the movie and we just removed it? What? So that is interesting. So Jay Leggett's thinking maybe that really what's going on here is that this is actually more of a business decision to get rid of the actress of Nani. That way, if this was going to be successful, which I highly doubt it will be now, it's going to be a lot cheaper to produce this without Nani involved. Gosh, oh, that hurts. That hurts.
Necessarily change the routes of storylines for Lilo and for Stitch, which makes it really interesting because these immature characters, a 6-year-old girl and an alien who's literally just come to Earth, progress far more than Nani, who is supposed to be this mature girl boss who ends up making the right decision in the end, which we all know is the wrong one. Stitch, this little alien who falls to Earth and doesn't know what's going on, but is a little selfish and is always doing bad things and being crazy, learns to sort of calm down, learns to take care of others, learns what family means and why family needs to be protected. And he does that in a matter of days. And Lilo, who is literally a 6-year-old girl, also progresses far more than Nani does in this storyline. In the beginning, when Lilo and Nani are having conflict, Lilo says to Nani, I don't know that you like really work out that well as a mother, but I really loved you when you were my sister, or I loved it when you were my sister.
There's similar line.
And as the film moves forward, we get this moment where Lilo and Nani are laying together, and Lilo says, you know what? I love you as a mom too, to her older sister. And Nani takes in that compliment. All the while, in the background, while Lilo is saying this, Nani is planning giving her up to the state. So Lilo and Stitch are two most immature characters in the entire film, as they should be. Learn to mature and progress far faster than any other person in this film, which is so interesting. Disney can't help but create films that I guess are somewhat of a Trojan horse for their own political ideas.
That's
and their
really
leftism.
good way to put it. That is a really good way to put it, right? They're going to take Lilo and Stitch and use it like a Trojan horse to get across a different message than actually existed in the film. So it makes you wonder, right? Did you actually ever care about adapting Lilo and Stitch, or did you like the fact that Lilo and Stitch would be more palatable to a general audience for you to push whatever message that you're trying to push? And I don't think it necessarily even matters what message you're trying to push. You like circumnavigated the original plot of the movie. That's gonna make people upset. Like I don't know how do they not see that coming?
They're going to give you Snow White or Peter Pan, or in this case, Lilo and Stitch. And instead, they're going to give you a bastardized version of that tells you to be a girl boss feminist, that you don't need no man, that you can save yourself. And if life isn't going the way you want it, just switch course, even if you have to abandon.
Brave literally exists. The Disney movie Brave literally exists. That is the story of Brave. Just make a live action Brave. What are you doing? Don't do Lilo and Stitch, the one about the nuclear family and like normal family conservative values. Do the what? Like literally that movie exists. Remake that one if this is what you want to do. It's so simple. Like they have such a catalog of different animated films with various different messages and thoughts behind them. And if you wanted to make a feminist girl boss live action movie, then choose one of the Disney girl boss movies. Don't do Lilo and Stitch. Oh my gosh.
Ohana, family. And to really drive home this comparison, I need to show you some clips from the 2002 version and the 2025 version. Now, here's some clips of Nani and how she's responding to Lilo being taken away from her in the original.
Lilo. Please, don't do this.
You know I have no choice.
No! You're not taking her! I'm the only one who understands it.
And in the 2025 version, when Lilo is saying Ohana means family and family means never being left behind and never forgotten, Nani says this about their parents dying.
Why are you trying to go against what Mama and Papa said?
Because we were left behind.
Oh, yes, you were left behind. Your parents left you behind when they died. She also goes on to tell her 6-year-old sister that this is the reality
Like,
that
the more you see that, it doesn't get better. What an insane thing to not only like think, because that's incredibly crazy to think that like your parents chose, like you're making it seem like they chose to die. Like that is a horrible accident. And not only that, you're gonna tell that to a small child? You what? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to traumatize Lilo? Oh my god, like she hasn't been through enough at that point.
they're living in and that she should live in the reality with her.
I know. All that stuff sounds so nice. It sounds really nice to me too, but that is not reality. This is reality.
Oh, yes, we all know that when
It just makes you feel gross, doesn't it? Just makes you feel really gross watching like Nani tell Lilo, nah, Ohana is all a lie and you need to live in the real world. That just feels so wrong.
child does not understand exactly what's going on or is not taking grasp of a conflict that's taking place in their life, that we have to pick them up and bring them into reality with us. Come on, 6-year-old Lilo, just understand what a much older Nani is thinking and experiencing right now. So yes, the 2025 version is a completely bastardized version of Lilo and Stitch, but it also makes no logical sense. In the original, Nani knows what family means. She knows how important it is, and in the loss of her parents, she knows what she needs to keep in order to take care of Lilo. Now, she may be coming up short in many different ways and also dealing with an institution that's trying to rip up their family, but she knows the end result should be her and Lilo together. Now, Lilo, as a young girl, is struggling with all of these different concepts because she's a child, and through her relationship with Stitch and teaching him and taking care of him, she is reinforced this idea that Ohana means family and family is important, and she starts to understand not only her older sister, but the world around her. And Stitch, this very selfish alien who has no concept of earthly ideas, learns in a matter of days just how important family, this thing that he never had, is. But Disney can't help but girl bossify everything that they create. And where in the original we only have Ohana means.
And they did not used to do this. Like Disney has, for as long as I've been alive, Disney has been showing us girl bosses. Me and my girlfriend just recently watched Atlantis. Love that movie. Tons of different female characters in that movie are incredibly important, but they didn't always do it. It wasn't a constant narrative. It was what are we talking about? Are we talking about an expedition down to Atlantis that requires a crew? Then yeah, that's going to have a bunch of different diverse characters. If we're going to talk about something set in Hawaii that is simply about the custody of Lilo, I think that should probably just purely focus on those types of values and Hawaiian values like Ohana. So they couldn't get an actual Hawaiian actress for Nani because any adult in that culture wouldn't accept that kind of change in the character. Yeah. And I believe the social worker that ends up actually taking Lilo to get Stitch in this movie is the person who originally voiced Nani. So that's a little tidbit for you too. Yeah, no, it is wild. Like the diversity push. You're doing this in Hawaii. Why can't they just be Hawaiian?
Family. We add this new phrase in the second film called kuleana, I guess. And essentially kuleana is you should never leave yourself behind. And that's the justification that they give to Nani to have her not only relinquish herself.
I would love to know what a Hawaiian, like a native Hawaiian person would think of that. Like I would really love to know. I've only ever heard, because Lilo and Stitch has been out a long time, I've only ever heard that Hawaii really appreciated Lilo and Stitch and that Ohana actually is a big deal in their culture. I've never heard this. Now, maybe it could be, but I'd love to hear from an actual Hawaiian person. Like, is this even a thing, or did Disney just find some obscure thing and make it and try to push it?
Guardianship of Lilo, but to go off and become a marine biologist at college. That you should also care for yourself and you cannot leave yourself behind, feminist girl boss. Now, somehow, some way.
So does that imply that, are they trying to imply that her taking care of Lilo would be leaving herself behind? Oh man. Are they trying to say that like motherhood is a sacrifice that you have to make where you have to leave yourself behind to become a mother? Like that's a crazy thing to say. Oh my god. The this is like it's so insidious.
Leftists on the internet are trying to say that this new Lilo and Stitch is taking on a conservative message. And I'm going to read you some tweets here. These have gone massively viral. This one says, just found out in the new live action remake, they made Nani give up custody of Lilo so that she can go off to college in the mainland. White people have to be stopped. It got 222,000 likes on X and 8.1 million views. Now, how is this a white storyline? It's not making sense to me whatsoever. And not only did Disney do this whole superficial representation thing throughout this entire film where you don't even really have that many white characters influencing the plot, except for, guess what? The two sort of villainous characters that are the aliens coming to find Stitch. Those are two white people you have in this film, but there is no white influence to this film whatsoever. As we all know, Disney is not an institution that's trying to uphold whiteness or conservatism at all. Now, this next one is very similar. It says, when I talk about Hollywood interjecting more white-centered conservative politics into their film, this is what I'm talking about. Nani denigrating Hawaiian beliefs and turning Lilo over to the government so she can study outside of Hawaii is colonial, anti-indigenous messaging. Are we not media literate anymore? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. We all know that Disney is not a conservative institution, company. It never has been. It probably never will be. Disney has been completely overtaken by woke leftism, and that's what's happened in this film. And I think there's this cognitive dissonance that leftists are realizing that Disney has completely bastardized Lilo and Stitch, and because they feel that, they want to attribute it to conservatives and to white people for some reason. But I promise you, if you take a look, not even a deeper look, a shallow look into Disney, this is completely informed by leftist politics and woke virtue signaling and pandering. Disney cannot make a remake without injecting leftist politics. And what they did here is they took the structure of Lilo and Stitch and they saw something that stood out. Nani. Nani is a young girl who has a whole future ahead of her, who is thrust into, let's be honest, unplanned motherhood. And how does the left feel about unplanned motherhood? They don't feel great about it. Now, they ask themselves the question, should Nani have to be responsible for Lilo? Should Nani want to be responsible for Lilo? Is that our natural lean towards Ohana, meaning family? Or is it just something that we place on young women because young women should have to be mothers and guardians? And Disney is, of course, delusional for even asking the question, for we all know that it makes sense for Lilo to end up with Nani, but not in leftist land, not in feminist girl boss land. So now Nani gets to say, yes, life circumstances have placed me in struggle, but I don't have to accept that struggle. I can give my little sister up to the state and hope that the foster care system takes care of her, and I will go to be a girl boss marine biologist on the mainland. You couldn't get more leftist feminist than that, in my opinion. How anybody could spin this into a white-centered conservative tale is far beyond me. Here we are, I guess, and that is what's taken place with this new remake of Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch, the two young, immature characters in this film, learn far more, progress far more, and mature far more than the mature adults in this film. And nearly every single adult that is present in this film, from Nani.
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
To the state and people working on behalf of the state, to the family friends of Nani and Lilo, completely abandon Lilo, this young immature girl who needs guidance, who needs guardianship,
She's
and
6
likely
years
from
old,
her
and they're talking
sister.
about
And they
her like
essentially
she's a
tell
bird.
Nani, you know what? Make a choice for yourself because you're a bright young woman and
Human
motherhood
being.
should not have been thrust upon you. And Disney wants to convince us of this narrative so much that in the end, Lilo sits with Nani and says, you know what, Nani? Yes, go. Leave me. Abandon me to become a Marine, she thinks. Not even to become a marine biologist. The 6-year-old is saying, go off to be a
So like the movie makes Lilo like the moral center that gives Nani the permission to abandon her. Like what the actual hell are we talking about here?
Marine. And that's supposed to be, haha, funny. Lilo doesn't understand, but she understands that Nani should give her up. So if you watch the original Lilo and Stitch, you got a story of family and learning to love and learning to care for one another and sticking together through all the struggles and institutions trying to break you apart and separate you. If you watch the new Lilo and Stitch, I guess the message to young children is, yeah, family is important, but not as important as your dreams of being a marine biologist. So if you feel like family is becoming too much, just call up the state and the state will take care of all of that for you. It's not exactly the same. Yet Disney is making money hand over fist.
You know, that reminds me of there's this old story that they used to tell in Lenin's Russia. So this is like Lenin going into Stalin, Soviet Union, Russia, and they used to tell this story. It was very common that it was about a small child who saw that their parent was doing something against the state, and as like hoarding food or something. And they said that the child then turned their parent in, and they were held up as a hero by the state, and everybody loved them and cherished them, and their family, their newfound family, was the community of the state that they were upholding the values of. And so the moral of that story in communist Russia was you and your personal liberty in your head should be more important than your family. Your family is us, everyone, the state. We are all a family. And you should turn people over to the state that are burdens, that are doing bad things. And it's not exactly the same, but it's just, I swear, when we get these kinds of messages in movies, I feel we're just tiptoeing. We're just tiptoeing closer and closer to that kind of mentality and mindset. And I don't understand why. Like, what was wrong with the original Lilo and Stitch that we even felt the need to change it in the first place?
Pumping out this film to young children and families. And I'm so curious to see how children interpret what they watch in this film compared to the original. I'm going to stick to the original. And you know what? I'm staying away from Disney. Disney, please, 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 please. I think the entire world at this point is begging you to stay away from the remakes, but you can't help yourselves. Not only can they not create an original idea, but when they go and lean on the original ideas of Disney's past, okay, they completely bastardize them. They completely change them. And you end up losing all of the magic, all of the tradition, all of the charm, all of the character that made the original so good to begin with. Disney, please stop. Guys, those are my thoughts on the new.
Well, I'll tell you guys, and we'll kind of end it there for her video, but I'll tell you. So when Michael Eisner was brought on from Paramount in the beginning of the 90s, and he brought with him, I can't remember his name at this moment, but he ended up going on to create Pixar. Ike Perlmutter. I think it was Ike Perlmutter. And he brought him with him from Paramount. That is what we call the Disney Renaissance. What Michael Eisner created, pretty much going up to around Lilo and Stitch time, was just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. Even the movies they made at the time that weren't big blockbuster hits, like Treasure Planet, still have a cult following to this day. Now, that animation studio, that entire department had been running since Walt. Walt, when they were making Dumbo, had actual baby elephant running around the animation studio. He had a baby deer brought in when they were making Bambi. Just so they could understand and really look at how was the animal moving and all that. Just to give you an example, that building is just administration at this point in Disney. No animation is done in that building anymore. That happened about 2010s or so. They moved everybody out. It's all off-site. It's all they outsource a lot of it too. It's not the same company anymore, and they don't care about their animation in the same way. And I think they're starting to realize that they can't make those classics anymore, and they're trying to figure out why. And I don't think that they understand you've stopped the tradition. You got rid of what was making Disney magical. Walt had a set of, and he's not a perfect man by any means, but he had a certain set of principles and practices going all the way back to the original Sleeping Beauty. He had a way to do this, and they no longer make movies this way. It's all very digital, and it's just not the same anymore. They had some success with Frozen and Tangled and Brave and those things. That's it. I really don't know if Disney's had success since then. Think about their most profitable movie since like Frozen 2. It's probably got to be the Lion King remake, and that was did very, very poorly in the United States of America, where they thought it was going to do great, and it did tremendously well overseas in China. So they made Mufasa. So like they're starting to make their money not even from the same things that they used to make their money from. It's a fundamental change in the core values of the company, and really how they do things too, just the whole strategy behind it. I mean, you even look at the parks right now. Disney is kind of getting beat by Universal. They just unloaded Epic Universe, expanded Harry Potter World. I don't even know if that's the best park in Florida anymore. Yeah, no, I think Disney's like too big to fail, right? I think that's a really good point. Like Disney's not going anywhere. They're too big to fail, but they're not gonna have the cultural impact anymore. It's if anything, it's gonna be a negative cultural impact. It's something that we all like to like gather around and look at like a car crash and say, "Wow, that was bad." I mean, the Star Wars trilogy is a great example of that. They took a golden goose and chopped its head off. I don't even know the brand dilution of Star Wars is so bad at this point that I don't even know if you're gonna make a lot of money if you put it back in theaters. I think it's gonna take a really good movie that spreads word of mouth. They're not like they could come back. Absolutely. And I would love for Disney to come back because some of the great animated movies of my childhood were created by Disney. And they're too big to fail. They're not going anywhere. But it's just sad because we've watched the degradation over time of this institution and the way that they used to do things. And they just don't do things like that anymore. And we get things like this Lilo and Stitch remake. It's hard to imagine under even Michael Eisner that this movie would have got greenlit. There's no way, because Michael Eisner would have never said, "Yeah, let's make a movie that has to do with like leaving her to go off to college." That would have been too adult. He would have been like, "Nah." They had to fight. I guarantee you, they had to fight hard to get a lot of the themes into the original Lilo and Stitch that they did have. A little tidbit for you before I let you all go. The original Lilo and Stitch, the very end of the movie was originally they didn't have like that cool red jet that Jumbo was like, hey, look, we have this in the woods. They had to go steal a plane to a commercial airliner to go after the captain who was taking Lilo. And so the initial end of Lilo and Stitch was actually flying a spaceship and commercial airliner around skyscrapers. And then 9/11 happened, and they very much didn't do that, and we're very, very scared of it. I think it's fair to say if something like that happened today, I think Disney would be like, we need to make a statement about it. We need to talk about it. We need to reference it, as opposed to old Disney would have said, we need to stay away from this. This is a children's movie. We shouldn't have anything to do with politics or anything like that. Let's not try to make any crazy statements. I feel Disney these days would feel they had some kind of moral obligation to make some kind of reference or statement. And that's a good example of where they're at right now. And I don't think it's a race relation thing. I just think it's a series of processes that aren't as tight anymore. They're not sitting here saying, hey, we have to make sure that this is for kids and it's not too deep and it's not too heavy, it's not too real. It'll have some cool themes that are a little heavy, and we'll layer them in there. We'll kind of we'll make that a little subplot throughout that is kind of your through line of the movie, and we'll touch on it briefly in an emotional way. And I feel nowadays they just kind of hit you over the head with it. Like that's the whole point of the movie these days, is whatever that message is. But those are my thoughts on Lilo and Stitch. I don't know where Disney's gonna go from here. Hopefully, this movie doesn't make too much money, and we can stop with these live action remakes and actually get back to trying to make new original animated films with a solid message, not trying to preach too much, just a solid message that everybody can get behind, like family. That would be really great. I think that they would have a lot of success if they did that. But those are just my thoughts. Please leave a comment or like if you have any of your own. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Saturday.